All right, let's get started. Slide 1. Hi there, and welcome to the US Web Design System monthly call. For the beginning of spring, at least according to the clocks, March 2021. And for March, our little wreath of triangles of the USWDS logo has changed from standard palette of blue and orange to I guess a St. Patrick's Day themed green. Slide 2. My name is Dan Williams, and I'm the USWDS product lead. And this is my little avatar here, which kind of looks like me. Thanks for being here. First, I'd like to mention that we're recording this monthly call. And as always, we post these recordings to YouTube. So please refrain from turning on your camera. We'll manually turn off any cameras to ensure the recording doesn't show us on camera. I'd also like to remind you, it's in the chat, but also that all attendees must abide by the TTS Code of Conduct, which is online at handbook.tts.gsa.gov/code of conduct, code-of-conduct. We posted the link to the Code of Conduct in the chat. We'll be posting other links and references into the chat as we go along, and I encourage you to ask any questions in the chat at any time. If any member of our team can answer your question in the chat, we'll do so. Otherwise, there'll be some time for question and answer at the end of the hour. Also, be sure to introduce yourself into the chat as well. It's nice to know who's here, and it's good to have you here today. Also, as you may have noticed, I've been reading out the slide numbers. We're always iterating to make the design system more accessible, and today we're applying some of the lessons we've learned from our accessibility colleagues to make our presentations and monthly calls more accessible. To that end, you may notice that I'll be reading out slide numbers as we go, and I'll also be a bit more descriptive of the slides and images on the screen. A bit like audio description, if you've ever used it for movies and television. So thanks. And with that, let's get started. So what is our agenda for today? First, as always, we'll show off a few nice site launches. Then we'll take a look at USWDS 2.11, our most recent release, just out yesterday. Then we'll go a little deeper and see some of the new components in action using the emergency response scenario we used a few months ago when we looked at USWDS 2.10. And then, if all goes well, and I get my timings right, we should have some time for questions and answers at the end. So let's minimize the jibber jabber and get moving. This was slide 3. Slide 4. Let's enjoy some new site launches. Slide 5. First up, oig.treasury.gov. A new website for the Department of the Treasury's Office of Inspector General. The homepage on the screen has the US government banner, simple blue header, large image of the US Treasury building at night, and the text, "Welcome to our new website." Slide 6. Next, www.fsis.usda.gov, the home of USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service. The homepage includes the US government banner. It's colored in a mix of minty and warmer greens. I think I see green 10, our green 10 color token in there, as well as a selection of healthy food and the text, "Takeout and food delivery tips." Slide 7. And lastly, our friends at FedRAMP, the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program. They have a clean and sky blue homepage with large blocks of color and the text, "Securing Cloud Services for the Federal Government." Once again, the US government banner at the top of the page. Slide 8. Great work. Great work, everyone. I'm looking forward to next month's site launches already. Be sure to let us know when a new site launches, either with an email or a note in the USWDS Slack. Slide 9, product updates. Now, let's take a look at what's new in the world of USWDS. Slide 10. Last week, we released an important report for the future of the design system, what we've called USWDS Next, Transforming the American Digital Experience. Many folks who attend this call may already know about this report from our announcements in the USWDS public Slack and other channels. But in September 2020, we brought together researchers, designers, engineers, and policymakers to conduct research across dozens of federal agencies to help support emergency response efforts related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our primary focus, in addition to COVID-19, was to understand how teams are using the US web design system to build websites and digital services, to develop insights into improving federal digital services with and for the public, and to identify strategies for advancing the design system through collaboration with agencies and other government customer experience initiatives. Some of the results of this research are the emergency response related features and components we released in USWDS 2.10 and 2.11, and the 2021 roadmap we talked about last month, focused on making the design system easier to use and understand. Slide 11. Improving how the public interacts with government digital services will be a collective effort, and it won't happen overnight. Read and download the complete report at designsystem.digital.gov/next. In the report, you'll get to see plenty of colorful abstract icons, like the ones featured in the lens image on this slide. Red pluses, yellow triangles, minty green check marks, pink Tetris blocks, and a blue arrow pointing up. Sounds like a kid's cereal. And we'll keep working for you and with you to make these improvements real throughout the year and moving forward. Slide 12, USWDS 2.11. So not only does this one go to 11, but it is moving right on past 11.0, 2.11.0 to 2.11.1. Why? As always, bugs. Just after publishing 2.11.0, we found a bug we really wanted to fix right away. So we did, and we'll keep doing that. I wouldn't be surprised if we just keep incrementing as bug fix releases more and more. I think we want to be able to do that with increasing frequency as time goes on. We want to fix bugs fast when we find them. You can read more about these releases at github.com/USWDS/releases. Slide 13. The main features of USWDS 2.11 are those we'll look at in just a minute or so. New components like icon list, modal, and input prefix and suffix. We also have component updates like sortable tables and updated link guidance, and a 404-page template. Slide 14. And there are a few other notable inclusions in 2.11. Perhaps finally, for some of you, we now provide a setting for a custom prefix separator. So if your system doesn't support the colon separator that we use in our responsive and state prefixes, you can now set that to whatever character or characters you choose. We've also improved custom font support when it comes to custom font stacks. We fixed tooltip positioning. We integrated our new icon set into all our components, and we continue to improve and provide better support for both custom colors and automatically setting text and foreground color based on background color to make accessible color combinations for both text and icons. Slide 15. And tomorrow, finally, we'll release an update to our Sketch and Adobe XD assets, exclamation point, bringing them up to date with USWDS 2.10 and 2.11. Slide 16. And in some behind the scenes work for USWDS 2.11, we've updated the USWDS repo's production branch name to main from master. If you've been following along, you'll recognize that this is a new best practice. It's the right thing to do and a way to reduce our use of antiquated and sensitive language. That said, most folks will not even notice this change. This does not affect our default branch, develop, and will not affect existing or future public pull requests. GitHub links to the previous branch will be automatically redirected. So if you notice any problems related to this change, let us know. We don't expect any, but you never know. Slide 17. On the USWDS website, we've also released a new components page, and here's a screenshot of it. Notably, it flattens the hierarchy of our components section, and each component gets its own page. So for instance, there's no longer a super long form controls page with all of the form controls in an extended scroll. And this also means no more wondering where to find something like a combo box or some other component where if you don't see it in the nav immediately, you don't know that it's there. Each component is now directly accessible from the new components landing page. We've implemented a component search and filter on the page as well to help you get what you need faster. So check that out at designsystem.digital.gov/components. You'll also see on that page that each component is not only listed in the navigation, but each component also has a little card on the page as well when you're scrolling through. So we'll continue to make improvements and changes to this page, but I know at least I have already found this to be a significant improvement over the last components page when I've been trying to find components. Slide 18. Now, to the new features and components in USWDS 2.11. Slide 19. To show how these components work together and in combination, we set up a demo site, just like the one we used back in December, that roughly approximates how teams might use these components in the service of emergency response. As before, we wanted to be extra clear in our demonstration today that the crisis we're working on as a model is not the all too real and serious crisis many of us are working hard to address. The one in our demo is zombies. Thankfully, the CDC and Department of Defense already use zombies as a model to help popularize and demonstrate preparedness. As shown in the bit of the CDC content on this slide with an image of the Center for Preparedness and Response's zombie preparedness site, which you can visit yourself at cdc.gov/CPR/zombie. We've adapted some of the CDC content from their site and used it as the basis for today's demo. And while our intention here is to be obviously fictitious, it's not meant to minimize the suffering and scale of a real crisis. Slide 20. So to help me through some quick component demos, I'd like to welcome James Mejia, contractor and part of the USWDS core team. Hey, James, thank you for driving as I try and we try together to do a demo.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
Hey, James, it's good to hear your voice. So let's get into it. Slide 21. We're going to start with icon list. An icon list reinforces the meaning and visibility of individual list items with a leading icon. It's a little bit like the process list we introduced in USWDS 2.10, except for unordered lists. Slide 22. When do you use an icon list? For do and don't lists. Icon lists help reinforce the message of a list item using a visual cue as a progressive enhancement. This can be effective in a list or pair of lists that describe actions users should do or not do. A pair of icons with clear and opposite meaning, like a check in a circle and an X in a circle, create an effective do and don't list. Also for features and metadata. Use an icon list to enhance a list of features, like a campsite's amenities, or other lists where icons might help users understand the content at a glance. Important tasks or requirements. Use an icon list to help users find, distinguish, and verify related steps or tasks that can be completed in any order, like a checklist of items to pack or documents to complete. And printable checklists. Users may wish to print a page and use it as a physical checklist. This kind of static checklist is not an interactive form. You could use an icon like checkbox outline blank to provide a space for physical checking. Slide 23. And when should you consider something other than an icon list? I think, multi-step forms are wizards. Use a step indicator instead for a multi-step form or indicator. Sequential steps. Use a standard ordered list or process list if the items must be completed sequentially. If you're using complex iconography or graphics, the icon should only reinforce the text of the list item. If the image needs to convey a special, unique meaning, this is a job for an illustration and not an icon. Or to improve the readability of running text. If something is just is part of running text, then you should use a standard unordered list instead. Slide 24. So let's get into the demo and see it in action. James. All right, that worked well. Now we can see that James has brought up his window for sharing, and his window shows a split screen of both this preparedness site on the left and of a code editor on the right. The page shows a big hero with a picture of a city at the top, and as we scroll through, there are different content elements that are only marginally related to what we're going to show today. As James scrolls down the page, part of what we'll see and what he scrolled past is an element called, let's see what it's called. It's called preparedness checklist. And underneath preparedness checklist is an example of an icon list. So it's essentially an unordered list with icons as bullets. Over in his code editor on the side, you can see the code for this icon list. It's not terribly important to see all the details of the code right now, but the important thing is that this is an unordered list with list items that we've used to display in a special way. And each one of these list items includes an icon and it includes content. This one, we also have, this one shows an icon list with a custom size variant. Up at the top under icon list, we can see USA icon list -- size large. There are size variants for an icon list that use the same t-shirt sizes that we use for text size, from 2XS up to 2XL. We've set this one as size LG. So this looks pretty good. We've also made a few customizations to this icon list. I've added some utilities into this list to display little lines on top of each list item. Icon lists can be modified in this way. This one has a border top 1px attached to each of the list items. And this is just a nice way to display a prominent checklist. Now, this looks pretty good, and prominent here in our desktop width, but if we make it a little bit smaller, if we turn it back to like a mobile width, we'll see that as it gets into the mobile size, it begins to very arguably be too big. The text is perhaps too big and too prominent, and becomes difficult to read at narrow widths. So the size variant for icon list is also accepts responsive prefixes. So if we go back up and James goes back into the code editor to the USA icon list UL, and where it currently says USA icon list size LG, we can put a responsive prefix in front of it, like tablet colon. This will constrain the large size to tablet size and greater. So he can add tablet colon before USA icon list size LG, and that will make that change, I think.
Sorry
Something
about
seems
that.
to be happening with James's keyboard.
Yes, unfortunately, Bluetooth seems to have hit. Oh, one moment, please.
Bluetooth, good old Bluetooth. But yeah, so you can also see up there that we use USA icon list size LG, but there's also, as we'll see a little bit later, USA icon list -- success. That calls out a specific color for the icons in the icon list. It accepts colors from our theme colors and our state colors. Look at that, wonder bar. So James has added tablet colon to USA icon list size LG. So now it displays at the default size, which is the default text size, which happens to be SM right now, for the checklist at mobile. And then as we get up to tablet, then it pops up to the LG size as well. So that's responsive sizing in an icon list. And then we can also take a look at changing an icon in an icon list as well. Each one of the list items has an icon section in it, and currently this section is set up to use the check icon that's part of our default sprite. And if we change the check icon to, let's just say, check_circle, it will use the check icon with a circle around it instead of the standard check. And change that, and there's check with a circle in it. With icon list, James has changed all of these at once, but each icon could use a distinct icon if that's what your design requires. Probably wouldn't ever do this, but that's a good example of changing one or many. You can also, if you needed to, assign custom colors on a case-by-case basis for the icons in an icon list. So now if James, if you scroll up on your screen at the full width and select the the Get Prepared button, that will bring us to preparedness page. And about midway down that page, as we scroll through a standard documentation style page, past text and tables and a process list, we see an example of a do and don't list here. So James, if you go and you open up that icon list do don't include, he's now brought up the code for this icon list in his text editor. This is similar to the icon list that we saw on the home page, except this one happens to show the content within 2 columns of the grid. And this one is set up in the icon list to use the default color. We haven't given it a custom color. It will take the color of the text that it is your default body text to begin with. But we can call out a custom color for all the icons in an icon list on the USA icon list element by adding USA icon list -- a theme or state color. So we're going to add success to this one, which will give it a green success color. When we do that, we see all the icons in the list turn to success green. And similarly, in the second icon list, we can go down and add USA icon list -- error. And that will add the error red to that icon list icon, which makes the icon list just that much more prominent and that much clear that it's showing a pair of opposites. And that is icon list. And with that, I will see if I can share my screen and come back to our slides. Thank you, James. Okay, slide 25, sortable table. A sorted column changes the row ordering based on alphabetical or numeric cell values. Slide 26, when would you use a sortable table? Enable sort wherever it would be useful. That may seem too pithy, but it's accurate. Add row sorting to individual columns of long tables where the data can be logically ordered either alphabetically or numerically. Slide 27. When should you consider not using a sortable table? Don't use row sorting and sortable tables with merged cells. If you have a table that has merged cells in it, sorting won't work properly if you're using like col span or row span attributes on cells within your table. And don't use row sorting with the mobile stacked variant of table. Sorting won't work properly with these variants because the column headers at the top of the table don't appear at narrow widths and are moved into cell content in each row. It just doesn't play well. And we'll show what to do instead of that in our example. So let's take a look at sortable table in the demo site. James. All right, James has brought up his screen again, which has the same split screen of the site and the code. On the site side, we can see a table, an info table of a few recently admitted US states. And we can see that this table has been set up to be a sortable table and that each of the column heads has a sort selector in it that can select that column and sort that column and the rest of the table. When you select a sortable column, that column will highlight, and then you can select the button to either sort ascending or descending. You can also see, James, if you bring this into a mobile width, you can see it a little bit at the desktop width. But if you're planning to use a sortable table, we want to be adding a scrollable container around the table to make it legible at mobile widths. So if you can see James scrolling that table at a narrow width. And that is because he has added a special class around the USA table, which is called USA table container -- scrollable. And that's the best way to make a complex sortable table like this accessible and mobile friendly is to add that scrollable element around the table. We can open that up again to full width, and we can begin to look a little bit at the code of a sortable table. Now, A sortable table needs some changes in its markup to make it sortable. Each of the column headers needs a data sortable property added to it. So each TH needs, each column that you want to make sortable needs a data sortable property in there. You'll see if James deletes the data sortable property from this first one, then and when it reloads it, that the sortable button will disappear from the name column. So you don't have to make every column sortable. You can only make certain columns sortable if you so desire. So the sortable table is sort of smart in how it's able to sort. It can sort of natively sort strings and integers. But if your text, if the contents of your table is a little bit more complicated than that, the table needs to know how to sort the data in the specific cell. So to that we have a property called data sort value. So if there's some content in something that is not a straight up integer, if it's an ordinal, sort of like 50th, or if it's a date, or if it has a % sign in it, or commas, or currency characters in it, then it can't sort natively. It needs each thing needs a data sort value. So when you're setting up, it makes sense to set up tables that you want to be data sortable with a template that's smart enough to do that conversion for you and to add the data sort value in when you are creating your table. So that's data sort value and how the table actually does its sorting. This table is also designed to be very accessible to screen readers. We can't really get into the screen reader experience right now, but it is very good at announcing where you are in the table and what, if any, sort of sort status is applied to a column, whether it's ascending or descending. And in order for this to really work properly, you're going to need to add a special div to your markup, which is the div that James is highlighting now, which is this screen reader only, USA SR only, with USA table underscore announcement region, also set up with the ARIA live property of polite. So with this, ARIA and screen readers will be able to know when the sort status of a column changes, and will announce that. We'll announce that order admitted to the union is now sorted in descending order, or order admitted to the union is now sorted in ascending order. So with the code and with this announcement region added, you have an accessible sortable table. Sortable table also has a number of settings that we're not going to show to control the colors of your highlighted columns, but we're not going to look at that at the moment. And that's sortable table. So I will go back and we'll move on to the next one. Share here. And the next thing is slide 26, or I'm sorry, this is slide 28, which is modal. A modal disables page content and focuses the user's attention on a single task or message. Slide 29. So when should you use a modal? Confirmation. Use modals to force the user to complete a task or make a decision that requires their full attention outside of the main workflow. These modals are usually triggered by a user action on a page and offer more than one option to proceed, such as yes and no buttons. They're commonly used to confirm user actions or tasks that can't be undone. Examples could include, your work isn't saved, do you want to proceed? Or, are you sure you want to cancel? Also for acknowledgement before continuing. This type of modal is used as a gate to prevent users from moving forward without acknowledging or answering specific information in the modal. A key differentiator of these modals is that a user should not be able to close the modal or escape without making a selection. This means that the close button should be disabled on these modals. It also means there needs to be a clear way to accept or reject the content in the modal. Examples of this type of modal include, by using this website, you are agreeing to our privacy policy, or your session is about to time out. Do you need more time? And the third case is explanatory content that doesn't disrupt a process. A modal can be used to display information without taking users away from a process or task. These modals usually show optional information to help a user gain further understanding about what they're doing. For instance, displaying a privacy policy while creating an account, or viewing an in-depth definition or explanation while filling out a form. Typically, these modals don't require a user to take an action other than just closing it. Slide 30. So when should you consider not using a modal? Really, consider not using it every time. Before using a modal, consider whether there's another component that might be less disruptive for the user. Modals should really be considered a last resort. Or for a multi-step process. Avoid complicated user flows in a modal that may take the user away from the original page. A multi-step process is typically better suited to an individual page, guiding the user and accommodating complexities in the user flow. Or for error, success, or warning messages. When these relate to a form field, these are better displayed in the context of the page, such as showing an error next to a missing required field. When these relate to page level messages, such as confirming that a form has been successfully submitted, they should appear as an alert at the top of the page where the user is taken next. So let's take a look at the USWDS modal back in the demo site. James. So now James is sharing his demo site screen again with the demo site and the code editor. And James, if you navigate back to the home page of the preparedness site and you select the Join the Team button, you will be taken to a Create Account page. And this Create Account page has some typical Create Account stuff on it, some atypical Create Account stuff on it. But one of the things it has at the bottom is a check to agree to terms and conditions. And when James selects that terms and conditions link, that will bring up a modal window. This one happens to have a few different ways to dismiss it. It has some fake terms and conditions in it. It has a couple different kinds of actions to take in it. It's not, you probably wouldn't necessarily design your modal like this exactly, but modals can include actions, buttons, and a close button if appropriate. Buttons and other things inside of modals are the events inside of this modal are sort of trackable in your JavaScript. So you can trigger events in a modal. You can do all kinds of things in a modal that you might expect to do. You can also see with the modal that the modal traps the focus. When you're moving your focus, when you're tabbing your focus through the modal, it's stuck in the modal and won't sort of jump outside back onto the page. The modal really deactivates the rest of the page. The rest of the page is inactive and pretty much inaccessible until you dismiss the modal, which in this case you can do in a number of ways: by selecting one of these buttons, by selecting the close button, by pressing the escape button, or just clicking outside of the modal window itself. So how do we set up this modal in the code? On the right side of the screen, James has the code up here for the modal trigger. And the modal is triggered by a click event, and it is triggered by, and it knows what to do because it has a couple special properties. It has a data, the anchor has a data open modal property added to it, which tells it to open the modal. And it also has an ARIA controls property in it that points to an ID of a specific modal window's content. So what is the content of the modal window? If James opens up the modal window include, we can see what the modal window itself looks like. Inside the USA modal div, we see that it has the ID of the ARIA property we saw in the trigger, so modal terms over there. We also see that it has an ARIA labeled by and an ARIA described by to try to really fully describe what this modal is doing and why they've been pulled away from the rest of the site content. Inside a modal, we kind of allow for a lot. You can put lots of different kinds of things into a modal. We have a little setup structure, but mostly we have a big USA modal content div where you can put what you need to put in the modal. Here we have a header, we have some content, and then we have a footer with some actions, and lastly the modal close button. We'll take a little look at the buttons. If you want an action or a button to close the modal, that button should have a data close modal property attached to it. And if you want to have a modal that you have to explicitly close with an action that you don't want to be able to close with escape or selecting outside of the modal, there's a special property called data force action that you can add to the USA modal element itself. You can also see that in this instance, we've moved that the close button is down at the bottom, and we've done this in this case so that when someone navigates into a modal, that the first thing that they get as a screen reader navigating into a modal is not the option to close the modal, rather information about the content of the modal. With the close action after the content of the modal has been read. So that is the USWDS modal. Thanks again, James. All right. Slide 31, input prefix and suffix. Use input prefixes and suffixes to show symbols or abbreviations that help users enter the right type of information in a form's text input. Slide 32, when do you use an input prefix or suffix? To highlight the type of information. Prefixes and suffixes are useful when there's a commonly understood symbol or abbreviation for the type of information the user needs to enter. Some common examples include units like LBS or FT, symbols like a $sign or a %sign, or even icons like showing an envelope for an email field. Input should not, you should use it when the input itself should not include units. Use prefix and suffixes if the input refers to a unit or currency amount, like a length or a dollar amount, but the user's input needs to include digits only and not a units or currency symbol. So you can use a prefix if you want someone to enter a dollar amount. You can use a prefix there that has the $sign in it so that the user doesn't need to manually add a $sign or try to add a manually manually add a $ into their input. And use a prefix or suffix to reduce mental load. Adding a prefix or suffix can help a user more quickly understand what kind of information is requested. Slide 33, when should you not use an input prefix or suffix? Now, for open-ended form fields, if there aren't specific parameters around the information the user needs to enter, a prefix or a suffix may be incorrect or misleading. For example, don't add a $ prefix for a form field that asks, what's a fair resolution? If the user could enter $1,000 or a full refund or whatever they think a fair resolution might be. Or for an explanation that requires additional words. Don't use prefixes or suffixes as a crutch when a symbol or abbreviation doesn't clearly convey the meaning. The type of information a prefix or suffix represents should really be clear. This is especially true when using icons that could have multiple meanings. You want to use a prefix or a suffix that really just reiterates what you've already said in a label or description. You don't want this icon to have to take on a lot of additional responsibility for conveying meaning. And now let's look at a demo of prefix and suffix. James. Because we are running a little bit slow, we're not going to go into a super full look at prefix and suffix, but you can see we're back at James's screen that's showing the sign-in form on the left and the code on the right. James has highlighted in this create account form email address field, which currently has a prefix in it of an envelope icon. When we look over at the code, you can see how this is set up. That inputs that use a prefix or suffix are enclosed within a USA input group, and then there's a USA input prefix that precedes the input, or a USA input suffix that comes after the input. Now, these prefixes and suffixes are ARIA hidden. They're meant to be a visual progressive enhancement, and we don't want them to be read. They don't add anything to the content. So the prefix is hidden, and the icon is also ARIA hidden. And we can see with this icon that we've used the standard icon markup of an SVG and a use. And in this instance, it uses the mail icon in our sprite.svg. Similarly, at the bottom of this form, we've included the all-important information you need to collect when collecting information for sign up, height. Of course, height is here. We have a height section. We've talked about why we're collecting this. Of course, we'll use this information to help assign you to a vehicle. And then each part of the height is labeled with what it expects, feet and inches. But we've further helped clarify what is supposed to go into these inputs by adding a suffix, a unit suffix into both of these inputs. We've added so you can add text or an icon as a prefix or a suffix. This one shows text. In the top, it shows the suffix of FT period. And in inches, it shows the suffix of IN period. We can also see that these are short. These are short inputs, just little ones that are only a couple characters wide. The USA input group, just like an input itself, have size variants that you can manually assign to an input group. They have t-shirt sizes from 2XS to 2XL to control the size of an input if the user is expecting to input short bits of text or numbers or long bits of text or numbers. And I think we should also mention that we don't provide ways to change like the color or to do anything with it like that, because these are really meant to they're meant to be secondary information, and they're not meant to be actionable, and they're not meant to look like they're actionable. These are just visual progressive enhancement. And that is input, prefix, and suffix. We have one more thing to demo in our remaining moments, and I will jump back in over here. And that's a 404 page template. And 404 page informs users that a requested page doesn't exist. This is slide 34. Slide 35. When should you use a 404 page? When a page doesn't exist, when a user is trying to navigate to a page that doesn't exist. Users might navigate to a missing page for a number of reasons. They followed an incorrect link, the page was removed, entered a typo into the URL, all kinds of reasons for a 404. Slide 36. Now, when should you not use a 404 page? You know, for other types of errors, an error that isn't a 404. So if there's a validation error or a submission error, or the website's been taken down for maintenance, these are not page missing errors. Or for inline errors, use alerts or form input errors when displaying errors that occur from interactions on the page. And let's take a look at the 404 page template in the demo site. James. So this is the 404 page added into our demo site. We can see the 404 page on the left and the code on the right. The page is inside of the standard page navigation, which does help if you have a page not found. You want someone to be able to find what they're trying to find. So it can be helpful to include this error in the context of site navigation, so that so it's clear that there's some place to go from a 404 page. This page says, page not found. We're sorry, we can't find a page you're looking for. It might have been removed, changed names, or is otherwise unavailable. And it has some additional context. It has some actions that you can do after finding this page. You can visit the home page. There's a contact action, and there's some other information that you could get for additional help. And at the very bottom, it says error code 404, because it is important to show an error code, particularly when you're trying to troubleshoot. But often that isn't the most important thing that a user needs to find when they get to a page like this. They're more interested in knowing what just happened, not the technical code behind what happened. And if James goes over to the code on the right, we can see that in the template that we've set up in the design system, this is specifically for 404, but we've also set it up with a sort of content structure, so you could use this 404 page to develop other kinds of error pages as well. We've tried to comment the code here so that the different sections could be applied to other errors. Above the H1 that says page not found, we've said describe the error in the main heading. There's an intro below it. Explain what caused the error in the lead text. These are all little bits that can help teams develop new error pages based on the kinds of content types that you want to have on an error page like this. So this is a 404 page. You can use it to customize it and apply to other kinds of error pages, but it's a brand new template. And as we look down, scroll through it, you can see that each section, the content type of the section, we've described why it's there and what you might do to customize that section. And that is the Design System 404 page. Thanks, James. And that is the last of what we're going to be demoing live. There's just one more thing that I want to bring up here, which is updates to our link guidance. This is slide 37. Slide 38. So we've made some changes to the way we're talking about link guidance. And the first thing is that we think that we want to recommend that explicit sourcing is preferable to an external link icon. It's not usually necessary to explain that a link will take users to a page on another site. If it will cause confusion to not indicate that a link is external, specify where the link is taking users within the content itself. Either include the destination directly in the content, like the CDC recommends against combining two disposable masks. It's clear that that link is a CDC link, or append the destination domain after the link using square brackets, like don't combine two disposable masks, square brackets, cdc.gov. If you include the destination in the link text, it will be read by screen readers. And this method is preferable to using an external link icon, which is often interpreted as share or open in a new tab. We don't recommend using it unless it's your agency's policy or preferred style. We've also included guidance around showing file type and size. You want to be able to tell users ahead of time if the link will trigger a file download and show the size and format of that file. For example, read our report, Transforming the American Digital Experience, PDF, semicolon, 1.2 megabytes. Similar to the domain information, we recommend including the file type and the size if you're pointing to a file. Slide 39. Be clear about in-page links. If you're using anchor links, try to clearly indicate that these links will scroll the user down on the same page by indicating where the user will go in the link text. For example, jump to video resources, or including the anchor links under the descriptive title, such as in this article, and then it's more understood that each link within that section will move to a place within that article. And we also suggest writing out email and phone links. For mail to and tell links, be sure to write out email addresses and phone numbers so people can read them without having to click on them first. Also, not all browsers will automatically display a clickable link when they detect an email address or phone number. So always encode the link with an A and a mail to, just in case. Include the country code in phone numbers in case a site visitor is international. Also, we should note, like, while displaying email addresses and phone numbers provides a better experience for users, it can increase things like spam for the recipient. So check with your Federal Web Council representative and IT security department for best practices for your agency. On this slide, we also show what we would recommend for a contact link. Contact USWDS at support.digitalgov.gov. And there's more detail on all these components and more on our website. And that is a little late, but USWDS.2.11. And my timing was a little bit off, so there isn't necessarily time for Q&A, but I will, if there are some critical Q&A things, if Amy has something that we would like to address right now, I'm happy to do it right now if folks are able to stay. If not, let me know.
Thanks, Dan. I think we have addressed most of them in the chat, and those that we didn't, we will recap the questions in our public Slack within the next few days and respond to them there.
Excellent. Thanks, Amy. I'm sorry that this did go long, but thanks for bearing with me. And so slide 41, this is our last slide today. Thank you. Thank you for joining today's USWDS monthly call. Next month, we'll be answering the question, why use the design system? And I can let you know already, the answer isn't simply because you have to. As always, I encourage you to join our community in the USWDS public Slack channel so you can follow our progress, get answers, and contribute to the discussion. You can follow us on GitHub. Check out our website at designsystem.digital.gov. GitHub is github.com/USWDS. And you can also visit designsystem.digital.gov/about/community to join us and your colleagues across government who are using the design system. Thank you so much, and sorry for going late.